Everything you've been told about death is wrong. It's not an ending, not a void, not a mystery left to faith or speculation. For over 1,000 years, hidden within a forbidden manuscript, lies a roadmap that details exactly what happens in the first 49 days after death. This ancient text, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, was once reserved only for the most enlightened minds, for those who could grasp its truth without fear. It reveals that the moment of death is not the final breath. It's the beginning of a test that determines whether you break free from the cycle of life and death or fall back into reincarnation blind and unprepared. Most people fail not because they are weak, but because they are unaware. They don't recognize what's happening. They don't see the illusions. They don't realize that everything they feel, see, and hear after death is a projection of their own mind. And by the time they do, it's too late. If this manuscript is true, then the first moments after death are more important than the entire life you've just lived. And it all begins with one crucial moment. The moment you leave your body behind. The moment you die. You don't simply disappear. Instead, something else takes over. Something ancient texts have described for over 1,000 years. You will feel weightless, detached, as if waking from a dream. There will be no more heartbeat, no more breath, yet you will still be aware. You will know that something has changed, but your mind will struggle to accept it. If you've ever had an out-of-body experience, this moment will feel eerily familiar, except this time there's no coming back. And then it happens. A blinding, radiant light so powerful, so overwhelming, that your very existence seems to dissolve into it. This is what the Tibetan Book of the Dead calls the clear light of reality. If you recognize it, if you surrender to it completely, you will merge with it. You will transcend the cycle of birth and death, achieving instant enlightenment, escaping reincarnation forever. This is the ultimate moment of liberation, and it happens the instant you die, but almost no one recognizes it. Why? Because we are conditioned to fear the unknown. The soul panics, clings to its memories, its identity, its unfinished desires. Instead of embracing the light, it recoils. And the moment fear takes over, the illusions begin. You will start to hear sounds, whispers, echoes of voices that feel familiar but distorted, as if calling from behind a veil. The world around you will shift, and instead of light, you will begin to see forms, patterns, shadows, glimpses of what seem to be people or places you once knew. But none of it is real, not yet. The mind is grasping, searching for meaning, and in doing so, it begins to create the very reality that will define the rest of your journey. This is where most souls lose their way. Instead of recognizing death as an opportunity for liberation, they fall into confusion. They seek comfort in familiarity, and the mind obliges, projecting the world they once knew, recreating familiar faces and voices. Some even see religious figures they worshipped in life, not realizing that these too are only manifestations of their own subconscious beliefs. If they knew the truth, that none of it is real, that they are being tested, they could let go. But instead, they follow these visions deeper into the bardo, the intermediate state between death and rebirth. You are now in the bardo, the space between life and the next existence. Time no longer flows the way it did when you were alive. Seconds stretch into eternity, yet days can pass in an instant. You have no body, no voice, only awareness. But here's the problem. Most people don't realize they have died. They are trapped in a dreamlike state, clinging to the echoes of their past life, unable to accept that everything they once knew is gone. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes the bardo as a shifting, unstable realm, a place where reality bends and distorts, where thoughts become things, and where the mind itself creates the experience. Every fear, every desire, every hidden emotion that was buried in life now takes form. The journey through this realm lasts exactly 49 days, a process that unfolds in stages, and for most, it is terrifying. In the beginning, there is confusion. The soul tries to return home, to its family, its loved ones. It lingers around familiar places, trying to speak, trying to be seen, but no one responds, no one hears, and the realization begins to sink in. This is not a dream, this is death, but even then, the mind resists. It clings to its identity, refusing to accept the inevitable. It seeks comfort, logic, explanations, anything to hold on to, but the bardo does not provide comfort. It is not a place of rest. It is a place of transition, where the soul must confront itself in its purest form. At first, the experience is neutral, even peaceful. There is no physical pain, no suffering, only awareness. Some describe this stage as floating through a vast open space, a formless void where thoughts ripple out like waves in an infinite ocean. But then, slowly, visions begin to emerge. The first visions are gentle and welcoming. Beautiful, radiant beings appear, what some may interpret as angels, enlightened masters, or divine guides. These figures emanate warmth, wisdom, and an overwhelming sense of peace. They offer a way out, a path to transcendence, but the soul must recognize them for what they are, reflections of its own higher consciousness. If the soul understands this, it can merge with them, dissolving into higher awareness, escaping the cycle of reincarnation forever. But most don't. They hesitate, they doubt. And hesitation is all it takes. The visions begin to change. The radiant beings fade, and in their place, shadows emerge. The peaceful forms grow distorted, their faces shifting into grotesque expressions. The once soothing voices become whispers of doubt and fear. What was once a paradise begins to twist into something darker. This is the next stage of the bardo, the test of illusions. These terrifying figures are not demons. They are not punishments. They are projections of the soul's own mind, its regrets, its hidden guilt, its unprocessed fears. The Tibetan Book of the Dead warns that everything experienced in the bardo is a reflection of one's own consciousness. It is not an external judgment, but an internal confrontation. This is where the journey becomes dangerous, because the more fear takes hold, the stronger the illusions become. The bardo is not just a place of transition. It is a mirror that reveals everything the soul refuses to face. And for most, that reflection is unbearable. As the days pass in the bardo, the comforting figures vanish, replaced by dark, monstrous entities. These beings are terrifying beyond anything the soul has ever encountered. They roar with inhuman voices, their faces twisted in expressions of rage and chaos. Some have multiple heads, countless arms, or eyes that burn like fire. They appear as demons, executioners, or relentless pursuers, and they strike fear into the heart of the unprepared soul. This is where most souls panic. They run, they plead, they scream. But there is no escape, because there is nothing to escape from. These terrifying figures are not real enemies. They do not exist outside the mind. They are projections of the soul's own unresolved fears, its hidden guilt, its buried regrets. Every moment of deception, cruelty, or selfishness from the past life takes form in the bardo, appearing as something external, something attacking. But the attack is self-created. The horror is self-inflicted. And the most dangerous part, the more the soul fights, the stronger the visions become. Fear fuels the illusion. Terror gives it power. The only way to escape is not to run, but to recognize. Those who realize the truth, who understand that these entities are nothing more than shadows of the mind. Watch them dissolve instantly, like mist burned away by the sun. The illusions vanish the moment the soul stops believing in them. But almost no one understands this in time. They see only the nightmare, not the lesson hidden within it. For the majority, the terror lasts weeks. The Book of the Dead states that by the third or fourth week, the soul reaches its next challenge, a full review of its past life. And this time, there is nowhere to hide. There is no judge, no divine courtroom, no higher being deciding your fate. What happens next is far more profound and far more terrifying. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes it as the Great Mirror, a moment when the soul is forced to confront the full weight of its existence. At first, it seems like nothing is happening. The wrathful illusions begin to fade, and for a moment, the soul feels as though it has escaped. But then a new experience takes hold, one more vivid, more intense than anything before. It is not a vision. It is not a dream. It is reliving. The soul is pulled backward through time, through every action, every thought, every emotion it ever created. But this is not memory. It is full immersion. The soul does not just remember what it did in life. It experiences it all over again. Every moment of kindness, every act of cruelty, every decision made in secret is now felt completely, not only from its own perspective, but from the perspective of everyone it ever affected. If you cause pain, you will feel that pain. If you brought joy, you will feel that joy. But there is no filter, no way to justify or excuse past choices. Everything is raw, immediate, and undeniable. This is not punishment. It is the truth. The soul is not being judged by some external force. It is judging itself. The Tibetan texts explain that for most, this experience is agonizing. We spend our lives avoiding responsibility for our actions, justifying our mistakes, burying our guilt. But in death, there is no place to hide. You do not get to explain why you acted the way you did. You do not get to argue, deflect, or reason your way out of it. You only get to feel. For some, this experience is blissful. Those who lived with compassion, honesty, and wisdom are flooded with peace as every positive action returns to them like waves of light. But for others, it is a torment beyond anything they could have imagined. Not because they are being punished, but because the weight of their own actions crashes down upon them. The bardo is almost over. The illusions have played their tricks. The soul has faced its past, relived every joy, every sorrow, every hidden thought that shaped its existence. Now, after weeks of drifting through the in-between, the moment of decision arrives. This is the final test, the one that determines everything. In the Tibetan Book of the Dead, this stage is described as the most crucial and most difficult moment of all. The soul now stands at a crossroads. It must make a choice, either recognize the illusions and break free forever, or give in to its desires and fall back into the cycle of reincarnation. But here's the problem. Most don't realize they are making a choice. By this point, the illusions have become so overwhelming, so convincing, that the soul barely remembers it is in the bardo at all. The visions now take on a new form, one that feels different from everything before. They are no longer terrifying deities or fragmented hallucinations. Instead, they become familiar, comforting, even tempting. The Book of the Dead warns that in these final days, the soul will be offered a way out, but it is a trap. It sees visions of loved ones calling it back. Familiar places appear, drawing it in with warmth and nostalgia. The soul feels a deep longing, a pull towards something recognizable. These aren't just hallucinations. They are glimpses of the next life it is about to enter. The karmic forces have already begun shaping the next incarnation. weaving the conditions of the soul's return. If the soul clings to these visions, if it allows itself to be pulled in, it is instantly swept into a new body, a new life, another cycle of forgetting. Rebirth happens instantly. The process is automatic. The moment the soul latches onto a desire, a fear, or an attachment, it is pulled into a new womb, a new reality, with no memory of the choice it just made. The Book of the Dead describes this as falling into unconsciousness, a moment of deep forgetfulness where the past life dissolves and a new one begins. It is as if waking from a dream with no recollection of where it just came from. And so the cycle begins again. Birth, suffering, death, and another return to the bardo. The first step to preparing for death is detachment, not in the sense of rejecting life, but in the sense of not being controlled by it. Most people are enslaved by their desires. They chase money, validation, status, relationships, thinking these things will bring happiness. But in the bardo, none of it matters. The only thing that determines your fate is the state of your consciousness. The more attached you are to the material world, the harder it will be to let go. And the harder it is to let go, the more likely you are to be reborn into another life of struggle, another cycle of forgetting. Detachment does not mean giving up everything and living in isolation. It means mastering your mind, learning to control your thoughts instead of letting them control you. The second step is awareness. The bardo is a realm of illusions, but so is life right now. Everything you see, everything you believe, is a projection of your mind, shaped by conditioning, fears, and external influences. If you do not learn to see through the illusions now, you will not see through them in death. The third and final step is acceptance. Death is not something to be feared, nor is it something to avoid thinking about. It is the most important moment of your existence, the moment when everything is revealed. If you live in fear of it, you will be ruled by fear in the afterlife. But if you embrace it as the natural transition that it is, you will approach it with peace instead of panic. Death does not change you. It only reveals you. The Tibetan Book of the Dead does not describe an afterlife in the way most people think. It does not promise a paradise for the good or a hell for the wicked. It does not place judgment on anyone, because the bardo is not an external place. It is the mirror of your own consciousness. Everything you will experience after death, the clear light, the peaceful deities, the terrifying illusions, the life review, and the pull toward reincarnation, is nothing but a reflection of the mind you carried in life. If you lived in fear, you will die in fear. If you lived in attachment, you will die clinging to what is already gone. If you lived unconscious, you will drift through the afterlife in the same way, reacting, grasping, falling back into the cycle. But if you lived with awareness, if you trained your mind to see through illusion, if you prepared yourself while still alive, then in death, you will recognize the bardo for what it is: a test, a transition, an opportunity. And that is the secret hidden for over 1,000 years.